Petersson, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So this, the motto of this conference is Arctic at the turn of the tide. What does it mean, really?
Well, anyone can put their own meaning into it almost.
So what's yours?
In these recent times, I think we can say with certainty that international attention on the Arctic has never been this strong. And that's a good thing. From the Norwegian side, we've been wanting to more people to pay attention to the Arctic, to the changes here and to the importance of everything going up here. And so that's a good thing, that people are now paying attention and are coming here to the Arctic to address the challenges that we need to meet together.
So what do you consider the greatest challenge when it comes to the Arctic in general, but in particular to Norway?
For us, the Arctic is not something far away. It's an integral part of our country, of who we are. We now find ourselves here in Tromsø, way above the Arctic Circle, but this is a normal European city. So that's important for us to realize that this is an integral part of Norwegian life and European life. We want things to remain as stable as possible, but in these times that is challenging. Here in the far north is where Norway, we meet Russia, just on the other side of our border, a bit further east. The Barents Sea is a very important area of interest. We need to maintain this area as stable as possible, at the same time to make use in a sustainable way of all the resources that are available here.
President Trump has defined this new interest in the Arctic as a geopolitical rivalry between the West, or the US more precisely, and Russia and China. The Nordic countries, including Norway, came out with statements saying we haven't seen that much of a Chinese pressure yet. So is there a discrepancy in the Western perception of the threat here?
We need to talk more together as allies to agree on the perception. This is not far away from us, this is home. I spent my childhood growing up a bit further east, just right next to the Norwegian-Soviet border when I grew up. This is home for us. Yes, there are most certainly Russian ships, a lot of them actually, bearing in mind what the Russians have on the Kola Peninsula in terms of bases and capabilities. At the time being, there's rather limited Chinese activities in these waters, but we need to not only look at the present, but look ahead and what's happening. The ice is literally melting, the sea lanes are opening up, and we need to be prepared to handle whatever comes in the decades ahead as well.
But in the Baltic Sea, we've seen both Russian and Chinese ships allegedly involved in some sabotage, if you will, cables being interrupted and so on. Do you fear a repeat of similar scenarios here? We
absolutely need to remain vigilant about those challenges. For the time being, the Baltic Sea is a lot more crowded than the Barents Sea. But we have vulnerabilities as well. We have critical infrastructure to protect. And that's a top priority, at least for our government. And we do that also in cooperation with our allies.
So if you were to assess how much you have already done to boost this kind of defense, resilience, since, let's say, last year until now, what has changed?
To be honest, for Norway, not that much, because the high north, the Arctic, has always been our #1 priority. We have, for our armed forces, it's the north that's the center of gravity, so to speak. It's where we have our capacities, our capabilities, our forces. Because of our geography, this is where we met the Soviet Union. In fact, Norway, throughout the Cold War, had the only land border between NATO and Soviet Russia. This is where the Russian had their capabilities, second strike, nuclear capabilities. This is where this is the most important threat that we face. Therefore, we have always focused on the north. And as we are now together with European allies and Poland leading in that matter, building up our defense forces, we're doing a lot more here up in the north as well, but it's always been important for us.
Right. Minister Sikorski, Polish foreign minister, said yesterday that Poland is the southern Nordic nation. Do you buy this?
Yes, Poland has moved a lot around in Europe without having moved, from being Eastern Europe to Central Europe to Northern Europe to, well, I'm happy to have Poland as an ally. We have so much in common, and we face very many of the same threats, and we are stronger together when we handle these threats together as well.
Right. We spoke earlier to former German Deputy Chancellor Robert Habeck, who said the era of low tension in the Arctic is definitely over, and that the security risks here, particularly when it comes to Svalbard, are acute. Do you share this assessment?
Not really.
Okay.
Yes, we used to have the slogan high north, low tension. That is no longer a precise description. Nonetheless, things remain fairly stable in this part of Europe. Yes, tension has increased. As for Svalbard, I'm sorry to disappoint, but it's actually very stable up there as well. It's been an integral part of Norway for a century. We have a century of experience with dealing with international interest on Svalbard. It is Norwegian territory. It's part of NATO as well, and it's not demilitarized, as many people unfortunately think.
But there's no specific Norwegian military presence on Svalbard Islands.
According to the Svalbard Treaty, there are certain limitations in terms of military bases, naval bases. We of course respect those treaty obligations, but it's part of NATO, it's part of Norwegian defense plans, it's part of NATO defense plans.
But the Russians are challenging this. They're questioning the treaty. They accuse Norway frequently of violating the treaty. So obviously the tensions are rising. We hear that the Russian-speaking or the Russian community in Svalbard is being radicalized, if you will, by Russian propaganda. So, you're saying this is stable. Obviously, there is some dynamic here.
It is stable. We have a century of experience in dealing with these things. Yes, the Russians have made complaints, but they have made very similar complaints over the past decades. There is nothing real new in this kind of rhetoric coming from the Russian side. We respect the right of Russia to maintain a presence, small presence on Svalbard according to the treaty, but it's Norwegian territory and it's Norwegian jurisdiction, legislation, and Norwegian governance. That it's the law of the land, so to speak. And we managed to coexist based on that principle, and our experience is that the Russians respect that.
But the treaty does not define the number of Russians who can settle in the islands. So, theoretically, in a few years' time, you could see not just a few hundred Russians there, but a few thousand, and there's very little Norway can do to stop that, right?
I disagree.
Okay.
And based on the experience, throughout the Cold War, there were several thousand Soviet citizens on Svalbard. At last count, there are 297 inhabitants in the last settlement that the Russians still have on Svalbard.
So in a sense, what you're telling me is not to exaggerate this security risk from Svalbard.
Yes, it's actually, with my apologies, media-driven, not substance-driven. And as responsible politicians, we need to care about the substance, not the hype.
Okay, so your minister and Commissioner Kallas mentioned today that Norway and the European Union are going to increase their cooperation also in the security aspect. Can you give us a bit more details on what specifically is in the pipeline there?
Well, broadly speaking, the EU is now renewing its Arctic strategy. That's a good thing that we welcome, that we look forward to cooperate on. But we face, as Norway, the most serious security situation since the end of the Second World War. That has, of course, very much to do with Russia's brutal war of aggression and the simple fact that Russia is our neighbor too, meaning that we need to do more together. And it's very encouraging that the EU has made the huge steps forward in terms of defense industry, defense funding. There's so much more we can do together, and although Norway is not a part of the EU, we cooperate very closely and take part in almost all of these initiatives, and that's a good thing.
But do you expect more EU funds into defense, or are you expecting more sort of specific presence through military assets in the region from EU countries or NATO allies? What is it exactly that you're looking for?
All of the above. Yes, there's now significant EU funding, EU initiatives going for all European countries to build up our military strength, which is much needed. Here up in the north, we cooperate closely with our allies. Yes, this is Norwegian territory, Norwegian waters, so we want to we maintain a presence. This is our neighborhood, but we cooperate very, very closely with other NATO allies, the United States, Britain, and others, and are looking forward to continue to do that because the situation up here affects not only us, but other allies and other allies' security as well.
Right, now I want to depart from the Arctic for a moment. In recent days, we had these revelations based on the Justice Department releases on Jeffrey Epstein, and it seems a lot of Norwegian diplomats and high-ranking officials were somehow implicated in this one. Diplomat just resigned, a prominent ambassador. So what do you think has happened there, not just in Norway, but in Europe? Has Mr. Epstein managed to create a network of influence working God knows for whom? The Russians? What is it? What are we dealing with?
We're now dealing with millions of documents, literally. What we are dealing with, for sure, is a sexual predator that left behind him many, many victims, and we need to express our deep solidarity with them. In terms of the Norwegian citizens that have been involved, I think our Prime Minister has said it very clearly that those individuals that have been involved, they have questions to answer. And for the time being, we need to get all the facts on the table, and then consequences will be made on those facts.
So has there been any formal steps to launch an inquiry, or how is the Norwegian government going to deal with that?
It's up to the individuals themselves to come clean about their interaction with Jeffrey Epstein. In terms of Norwegian officials, yes, it's one current ambassador. She has temporarily stepped down to make time and room for this exercise. Now getting all the facts on the table, because that is what we need to do before we draw conclusions.
But is there an official probe, or?
She's cooperating very closely with the foreign ministry as her employer.
So the foreign ministry is conducting some kind of audit, or?
The primary responsibility is on the individuals themselves that have engaged in contacts, cooperation with Jeffrey Epstein.
Is there a lesson from all of this for European policymakers?
Most certainly there is, but I think that there will be a time for that as well. The number one job now is to get the facts on the table.
All right. Minister, thank you very much.